Kia ora talo, namaste, haere and welcome to the Niche Cache. This is our big old podcast chatting about our Aotearoa sport. We focus on our four major sports here at the Niche Cache: rugby league, football, basketball and cricket. And we'll get the juices flowing. I just want to offer the first note, the first nugget is hope. Is reason to be positive despite the general feeling right now, and that is that the Warriors are in the finals for NRL, NRLW, and New South Wales Cup. So that's just how it is right now. Those three teams are all top six in their respective competitions. Warriors, they're sliding. They're sliding for sure, but they're still fifth. The women, I think they're in sixth right now after their win over the Bulldogs, and of course the New South Wales Cup team is first, absolutely dominating the reserve grade competition. So regardless of how you're feeling after the NRL loss to the Bulldogs, regardless of your situation with the Warriors and the injuries and 3 consecutive losses, because I still believe that you can't be a genuine NRL championship contender if you got the home losses, but now you got the 3 losses in a row against the Titans, who are probably going to finish last, the Dolphins, who are competing to get into the top 8, and then the Bulldogs, who are a genuine championship contender. Okay, if you're losing 3 in a row against the top 4 teams, that's all right. If you're losing 3 in a row against 2 top 4 teams, 2 top 8 teams, or 3 top 8 teams, whatever split you want to do, that's all right. That's okay. That shit happens. If you're losing 3 games in a row against a team in every section of the NRL ladder, and you got the home losses, not sure if you're a championship team, but the Warriors, they're going to be in the mix for a championship because they're in the finals right now. If the finals were starting next weekend, Warriors will be playing finals footy in the NRL, in the NRLW, and in New South Wales Cup. There is also this funky little nugget that I have savoured in pondering Blackcaps cricket after the end of the test tour to Zimbabwe. And this is that across the Blackcaps and New Zealand A, those 2 teams have not lost an overseas first-class game in their last 9 games. So the Blackcaps, they went to Sri Lanka, they lost 2 games in Sri Lanka. That was a bummer. But then they absolutely rolled up and smoked. They put India in the pack, and they smoked them 3-0 in India. Then they went to Zimbabwe, far more respectful. They played a couple of games of cricket against Zimbabwe, and they won those games of cricket. We're not rolling up and smoking Zimbabwe because they're our anti-cartel brethren. So that's 5, in fact, for the Blackcaps, that's 5 wins in their last 5 tests overseas. That's cool. That seems useful. Now, of course, you can poke holes in it. You can say before that they sucked in Sri Lanka, Zimbabwe sucks, so who cares about that? And between those test series, they lost to England and New Zealand. Okay, whatever. You can, if you want to be argumentative and you want to be pedantic, you can do your thingy thing. It's all right. But at the same time as that was happening, the New Zealand A cricket team, they had 2 wins in Australia. No, sorry, they had a win and a draw in Australia. Might need to fact check that one, because I've got it typed out here. But then they had a win and a draw in Bangladesh. So the New Zealand A team has not lost an overseas game in their last 2 tours. That's Australia and Bangladesh. Australia's really good at cricket. Bangladesh, tricky conditions. New Zealand A aren't losing those games. They got some wins as well. But you combine them, that's 9 first-class games, 5 tests, 4 New Zealand A games overseas, and New Zealand teams have not lost any of those games. That just seems like a solid observation. You can do all the poking holes that you want, but at very least, that is a positive sign for the Blackcaps development pipeline that they are doing all right in overseas games. Do you have a similar observation, a similar nugget, a similar wrinkle for your football and your basketball realms?
Well, I mean, yeah, because like certainly for basketball I can, because the what you're talking about with the Warriors is like that's their three senior teams are all sitting in finals positions. There's crossover between New South Wales Cup and NRL, of course, but there's also like solid bases of those are two different squads. Some players go between, but you've got to they're like they're winning. Well, the NRL team isn't winning as much at the moment, but certainly early on in the season, both of those teams would be winning on the same day and things like that. That Blackcaps, if you got the A's stuff winning, you got the tour in Zimbabwe, tour in India, different conditions there, two different A tours, a lot of good results there, a lot of wins and draws there. Well, that's a wide scope of players that we're talking about. As far as basketball goes, I mean, I think to the last where are we? Maybe I think five major tournaments that New Zealand basketball has been involved in. Under 17 World Cup last year, fourth place. Superb, like a bit of a record work from them. Unprecedented at the time, but not unprecedented since, because since then they had a second place at the under 18 men's Asia Cup. And that under 18 men's team and that under 17 men's team from last year combined to make the under 19s men's World Cup this year, who also finished fourth. The Tall Ferns had an Asia Cup a few weeks ago where they finished fifth, didn't quite make the semi-finals, but were pretty competitive with an understrength team and a new coach, a lot of if not debutants or a couple of debutants, but also a lot of just inexperienced players who rose to the occasion there, built out their depth. That was a pretty good effort from them to finish fifth, and now the Tall Blacks are at their Asia Cup, where they are 3-0 through the group stages. We'll talk about them a bit in a sec. They've got a pretty young squad as well. Not so much a new coach. Joe Flavel's been there for over a year at this point, but or there or thereabouts, and has been involved in the team beforehand anyway. So that's a little bit different, but also the expectations are a little bit different because we actually like this Tall Blacks team shouldn't be settling for fifth. This Tall Blacks team should be at least making the semi-finals and probably winning a semi-final potentially as well, given that they should now. Well, it's the group stage is played out more or less as we hoped, which means we will avoid Australia in the semi-final, who are the team that knocked us out in the semi-finals of the previous two men's Asia Cups that the Tall Blacks have been to. So the sort of the three youth teams that I mentioned, a lot of crossover there between players, but also like the depth of emerging talent from those squads is bigger than we've ever had before. And then also we've seen Tall Ferns and Tall Black squads which have dipped into their depth, finding good, getting good results at major tournaments, continental tournaments in their cases as well. So I think that suits. That certainly fits in the theme. If you want to add anything to
Or
that.
just I'd condense it down because everything you just said there is, to me, it tells the story of New Zealand being a top four basketball nation in Asia, and that is not like that's pretty damn decent because Asia
Yeah, it
includes
is.
a lot of really good basketball nations, like obviously China. You got the Philippines who love basketball. Australia is always a factor. So it shouldn't be assumed that New Zealand, just because we're New Zealand, we are automatically one of the best basketball nations in Asia. This is a recent development that we have seen New Zealand becoming a top four, at least top five. We'll settle with top five, but I think it's top four when you factor in the under 19s performing on a international stage. So they're definitely top four international, but then you got the Tall Blacks and the Tall Ferns who are doing really well in the Asia Cup. So somehow, little old New Zealand, with one of the smallest basketball populations in the world, that probably isn't true because other countries have smaller, but resources, all the things that we talk about with cricket and other sports, it's actually similar because New Zealand is to me, a top 4 cricket nation in the world, which is crazy considering our anti-cartel status. But it's the same for basketball. And I think that needs to be hammered home, is that basketball is now in a similar zone to cricket, where the teams and the nation are going far above and beyond where they should be, given resources and any like just general perception on basketball in New Zealand, cricket in New Zealand. Do you have a similar thing with football? Do you?
Well, I think the trend is true in football. The same trend is true, and like, it's been true of rugby league for a long time as well.
Those are common storylines, though. We always talk about like how good New Zealand football is, how good New Zealand rugby league is, but I do want to be specific, because we have you're going to drop some domestic football notes later on in our football section. So I was curious, like, do you have any deep cut for the football, the local football that you want to share? Because we have seen 16-year-old Pia Vlock get a contract with the Wellington Phoenix recently out of domestic football. We've seen a youngster, Aotearoa, get a contract with the Phoenix out of domestic football recently. And this is a great time of year because we've got NPC rugby hitting the regions, and we've got the local football scene heating up as well, fresh off the NBL season. Do you have any deep cuts for football as we just try and drop a few nuggets, a few observations to start us off?
Well, let me think on that for a sec, because I mean, we might talk a little bit about if there's time to do some flying Kiwi stuff later, or maybe mention a bit of Cacace and Bindon later on, because theirs is a bit more of a diving into that, and Max Crocombe as well. All of those 3 guys in the English Championship. I just forgot Crocombe because he didn't actually get to debut in week 1, but I can explain that later if we come back around to it. Otherwise, it'll be written in flying Kiwi. There's always a few of those ones where it's like the amount of professional players we have these days necessarily means that some of them will get sort of swept under the radar a little bit. I don't think that's going to be the case for Ben Old because of his Wellington Phoenix profile. Generally, players who've played for the Phoenix beforehand have are well established enough that people track them a little bit closer. But he did score a goal on the weekend, and that was his first goal for Saint Etienne in a proper game. He scored in both preseasons that he's played, but of course he was injured for large chunks of last season. Saint Etienne got relegated. He also got an assist in the first round of the second tier and this week, so he got an assist and a goal in the same game. But I didn't really share the assist because I don't really count it as an assist. He's running towards the near post to try get on to a tap in from about 6 yards, and it kind of hits his back leg and deflects away from goal towards the guy around about the penalty spot who slams him in. Maybe if I had a better angle, it might be showing that he did that on purpose, but I kind of think that would be crazy to flick it away from goal in that situation when the move is set up to try get you a tap in at the near post. But yeah, it was kind of an accidental assist. So New Zealand football did their kind of player of the week thing where here's the performance of the week, Ben Old with a goal and an assist. It's like, yeah, well, I actually watched a bit of that game and dug into it, and I don't know that he actually played that well outside of scoring a goal, and the assist was a bit of a fluke. But that's Sadeti and getting ready to, figuring out their second tier existence rather than their first tier existence. But I might have lent a little bit more in terms of performance of the week, apart from maybe someone like Liberato Cacace. I lent a little bit more towards maybe a Gabi Rennie, who scored again this week for Eskilstuna United in Sweden. Sweden's second tier, but they are challenging for promotion. She's got 3 goals and 8 assists in 12 games this season, carrying on from what she was doing in Finland last year. So she's been superb, in superb club form right around the time that she's been dropped from the football ferns, weirdly. So she kind of kept getting picked when she wasn't doing this at club level. Now she is doing this at club level when she stopped getting picked. So I don't know what's going on there, but she's certainly doing her best to earn her way back in. And then there's a very fun situation at Kolbotn in Norway where Jackie Hand, Olivia Chance, and Liz Anton are all playing for the same team. All of them are starting every week. Jackie Hand scored on the weekend. She got that's only about a 3rd game for the club because she was a mid-season addition. got a couple of, well, she got an assist and then like a goal that she created, which wasn't an assist, but it's kind of like one of those ones where, in rugby league, like the halfback gets the ball, steps two guys, throws a cutout pass, and then the center does just a little catch and pass. The center gets the assist to the winger, but the halfback created the try, right? It's one of those ones where Jackie Hand didn't get an assist, but she kind of led to the goal. But scored one on the weekend. Lovely stuff, except that her team did lose. And that does put Jackie Hand in particular in a little bit of a weird situation because she's coming off a season with 2 seasons in England, actually. One with Lewis and one with Sheffield United. She got relegated in both of those seasons. And because they lost this week, Kolbotn are also still sitting last place, staring at relegation in Norway. So that would be the anti-Marko Stamenic, where he wins league and cup doubles in different countries every year. Jackie Hand apparently gets relegated for different teams every year, but maybe that won't happen. That's why I speak it now, so that we can get this curse out of the way with, out in the open. And the dark forces will be too ashamed to see it through, because Jackie Hand's played really well in her first couple of games for Kolbotn, and she looks to be an important player for them. So plenty of Kiwi footballing depth going around there.
So how many Kiwis do we have for Kolbotn? Jackie Hand,
Olivia Chance coming back from having a baby, so she had a year or a year and a half out of the game. She's making her return there, and Liz Anton, who was really one of the most underrated Kiwi players in the A-League for a long time, for like 3, 4, 5 seasons, and this is her first opportunity overseas as well. So all three of them are in an interesting spot in their careers, teaming up there. But it'd be nice if they win a few games as well.
We got 3 Kiwis for Kolbotn, and Kolbotn. Where's Kolbotn? It is south of Oslo, just a smidge south of Oslo. It's like
there you go.
Your Pukekohe to your Auckland. It's
Right.
your I think Pukekohe to Auckland is the best one. I was thinking, Palmerston North to your Wellington, but I think it looks like a smidge south of Oslo, just off the inner Osfjord there in Norway. And when you look at this map, you realize how close the Vikings were to the United Kingdom. So no surprises that they decided to plunder the United Kingdom as they did back in the day. But it's a weird spot for 3 Kiwis to be playing football, but don't think you can do much worse than playing a bit of football in Norway, especially if it's not winter, because winter would be a bit weird, but they're doing their thing, playing football overseas. So shout out to them. Shout out to the nichecache, theniche-cache.com. You can read about our thoughts, opinions, facts, and figures on our website. I do have a couple of Blackcaps things live. I'm in the process of publishing the 5 funky trends type of stuff for the Blackcaps, or just some Blackcaps insights that don't necessarily come from the Zimbabwe series, because I don't really want to, you see the old player ratings for the Blackcaps in Zimbabwe. It's like, well, how are you doing player ratings for those 2 tests? That doesn't seem interesting to me at all. But there are some insights and observations about the state of Blackcaps Test cricket, and that's live on the website right now. We got the domestic football roundup. You can still read about the Tall Blacks at the Asia Cup, lots of deep dives on our website. And of course, all the bits and pieces we're talking through right now, they have been typed out in our newsletter via Substack, thenichecache.substack.com. And I don't know if we'll talk about the White Ferns a whole lot in this podcast, but I do have some updates on the White Ferns who are preparing for the ODI World Cup. Coach Ben Sawyer did a little interview yarn with Cricinfo, and it was actually interesting, because they're talking about preparing for a World Cup in India when you haven't been playing a lot of cricket, and there are some younger players who haven't played much cricket in India at all. So this was in the newsletter yesterday, which is always full of Aotearoa sporting notes and nuggets. There's New Zealand's team management is also leaning on inputs from High Performance Sport New Zealand, with Dr. Kirsty Fairbairn, an experienced dietitian who has worked with the White Ferns and the Black Ferns. She's looking after the players in subcontinent conditions. And then there's another thing here from Ben Sawyer saying, we've actually tried to train really hard over the last 5 days and not to recover. So the White Ferns, they might be doing like no ice baths, right? Like I don't think they're going to the extent of like, okay, we're going to play and then we're going to eat 10 curries, we're going to go Macca's and just go hard on the beers and the wines and just like fire up because we're not recovering, rest and recovery.
No sleep, straight to training at 6 a.m. in the morning.
Like that would be extreme, but apparently, I'll finish this quote, I interrupted myself. I guess in a way not to recover, try to just do it naturally and let our bodies adapt to the conditions. And now we're playing the 3 games, we'll try and recover really well. So basically what the gist of that is, during the training, train really hard, and that because your body needs to adapt to the conditions, the heat, and feel the pain and the suffering, I guess, a little bit of mindfulness there. But then you come into the games and you're doing your recovery. So, but there's only a small group of White Ferns who are in that training block with the over in India. You got some the best White Ferns, Susie Bates, Sophie Devine, Amelia Kerr. They're playing some competition in one of the Cartel nations, so that's good for them. And then they've also got training camps around Aotearoa. Spinners working with Paul Wiseman, Seamers working with Graham Aldridge. We've got everyone's getting what they need. Some players are actually doing a few sessions in heat chambers back home. So they're going hard out in preparation for this World Cup, and that's actually got me quite encouraged. So I just want to plant my flag, and I am encouraged about the White Ferns heading into this World Cup with some of the, it just seems like they've just gone up a level with all their professionalism, their initiatives, thinking outside the box, thinking of new ways to get better, making sure you've got the players experiencing conditions and just doing things effectively and efficiently. So you could have read those quotes in the newsletter yesterday. We've also got the Tall Black section, and of course that is all part of the free portion of the newsletter, which anyone can sign up to. Just whack in your email address, it comes right to you. But then there's also a paid section, so if you do appreciate our work and you want to upgrade to a paid Substack subscription, you could have then read about the Warriors New South Wales Cup under-21s. You could have read a deep dive into the Wellington Phoenix plan in the Aussie Cup. That was part of our paid dispatch yesterday, and you got a lengthy list here. Done deals from the Flying Kiwis transfer window, roughly at least 30 there in the paid section of our newsletter. Newsletter comes out every Monday and Thursday evening. Thursday we also send out our bonus podcast. Full newsletters are copied into Patreon as well, so if you want to jam us on Patreon, we welcome your support. That goes a long way in helping us do what we love to do, and just being here with us, having your listens, having your eardrums, your eyeballs tapped in with the niche cache is fantastic as well. So big up to you, just doing your best. Have a crack today, go out there and enjoy the sunshine, because we've got a bit of sunshine, so no complaints when the sun's out and we're all having a good old time on planet Earth. Do you have some mindfulness?
I do have some mindfulness. I jacked this one from my boy on the Living Myth podcast, who told it as a big old story. I was listening to it while I was falling asleep, and it kept me awake because I thought, that's good, I'm going to use it. Except that he did, because he told it as a big old story, it's like too long to read. So I've summarized it from memory as best I can, which is that a young monk is feeling disillusioned with the world, with society, whatever, goes and joins a monastery and just spends all day meditating. So he's meditating through meals, he's meditating through sleep, he's not exercising, he's getting frail, he's getting dizzy, he's kind of like wearing him down, just sitting there the whole time, just trying extremely hard to go and find his enlightenment somehow. An older monk wanders along, he says to him, "Why do you keep chasing enlightenment like this? How do you know it's not supposed to be the other way around? How do you know that enlightenment isn't chasing you, trying to meet you where you're already at, except you keep running away.
Which does point to the greatest mindfulness, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it, is deploying that in your day to day. Because we could all, I want to be calm and peaceful, relaxed and grateful. So you just go to the monastery. Or for us, maybe it's more applicable. Okay, I want to be calm and peaceful, so I'm just going to go out into the bush. I'm just going to live in a cabin in Mother Nature. And it's cool. Like, yeah, sure, I want to do that sometimes. But that is only useful if you can then bring that calm, peace, gratitude into the hustle and bustle of this crazy life that we are currently living. It's like, I think the highest form of mindfulness and enlightenment is being able to use that in everyday life, to use the skills that you've learned instead of going to the monastery where you're not stressed out by anything. Like at the monastery, you don't have some bloke up your ass in a car like he's at some sort of V8 supercar race trying to burst past you or anything. Like, you don't have any dramas at the drive-through where they've forgotten your order. Like, none of that shit goes on at the monastery.
They let you meditate all day.
Yeah, everything is designed for you to be peaceful and calm. But if you can then be peaceful and calm in the crazy situations of everyday life, that's just next level.
Yeah, it's a bit like the basketballer who can knock down, 100 free throws in a row, but then is shooting under 60% in the games. Like, they call it a practice for a reason, it's not it's not the real thing. You've got to take those lessons into the totality of your life, not just those moments where it's there for it.
You get me in a net, I'm hitting the top of off stump every time. But the old
Put it better there.
the whole 110k dibbly dobblers hitting the top of off, that's not going to work in the old cricketing game. So yeah, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. But it's a notable reminder right now as well, because you can look outwards and all this shit's a bit crazy. So yeah, there's plenty of reason to get down in the dumps. But if you can then observe how crazy it is and stay calm and peaceful, that's only going to serve you better. That's only going to take you to the next level, and then you just radiate that calm and peace for everyone else to follow along. Let's slide back to the Tall Blacks. So the Tall Blacks have gone 3-0 to start the Asia Cup. Wins against Iraq, Philippines, and Chinese Taipei, all of which are far bigger countries than Aotearoa. And actually, it's the same with Zimbabwe and cricket. Like, shout out Zimbabwe, appreciate you for this Test series. We assume that the Blackcaps should play far better than Zimbabwe. And it's like, true, we should win those tests comprehensively, but let me do a population check of Zimbabwe, because I'm feeling like it's significantly larger. 16.6, so I think New Zealand 5.5, maybe 6 million. Zimbabwe twice as big, maybe half as good at cricket and basketball. So let alone Philippines, Iraq, Chinese Taipei, and the Tall Blacks, they've just cruised past them all, doing their thing in the Asia Cup. You had some stats here in our newsletter. Most minutes in the 3 games, Mojave King, the new Kiwi. He's played the most minutes, followed by Jordan Ngatai, then Taylor Britt. Most points scored, Taylor Britt. So Taylor Britt, 3rd for minutes, leading point scorer. He is with the Breakers next season. That's good to see. And the Breakers in the group stage for their group, they were 1st points per game, 1st for rebounds, 1st for assists. Comprehensive basketball excellence. So shout out to the Tall Blacks, rolling through the Asia Cup. Now, what's their next game going to be?
The next game is on Thursday. Time to be decided. I don't know if that means like 9 p.m. Thursday night or 2 a.m. Thursday morning, which is obviously different days over in Saudi Arabia where they are, but we'll see how that shakes up because they are waiting. They're waiting in the quarterfinals to play a team from the playoff round. So the teams that finish second and third in their groups, because we go straight to the quarters as a first place finisher, but other teams have a round before that. And we will play either it's Japan or Lebanon, I think. Let me just check the draw. It is, yes, Japan and Lebanon on Wednesday at 4 a.m. So the winner of that game is who we face. I was thinking Japan would, I thought they'd finish a little bit higher in their group, but they actually lost to, who did they lose to? It was like Iran or someone like that. I think Iran beat them in the group stages. So it goes. Like both of those teams are pretty good. Both of those teams are the type of teams that often make semi-finals at Asia Cup. So that is certainly not going to be an easy quarterfinal for the Tall Blacks. But the group stage kind of followed a similar pattern to what we saw in their preparation games beforehand, where like their first half of their first game against Brazil in the preps was terrible. They got absolutely blown out and then actually won the second half, but still lost comfortably because of how bad the first half was. But then they won every single game after that, getting better and better each time, including beating Brazil when they played them again like a week later. The first game of the group stage was against Iraq, and we were losing at halftime against a team we were expected to beat pretty handily. Second half was much better. Second game against Philippines, probably the strongest team of the three that we played against, even though they actually lost to Chinese Taipei, so only finished third in the group. I think Philippines play Australia in the quarterfinals, so good luck to them. Be great if they beat them, but I can't see it happening. But yeah, the Tall Blacks were pretty good in that game. Philippines shot the lights out, and that helped them like close the gap pretty threateningly during the third quarter. But then a very good, very professional, gritty kind of get your defensive stops and build from there. Sort of fourth quarter saw them to victory, and then against Chinese Taipei in the third game, they just blew them out of the water. They dominated in all the major stat categories. Were just way better against the team that actually finished second in the group. So, and the fun thing about the Chinese Taipei game as well was that it started off with Taylor Britt being really good. Like he was probably the best player through the first two games. He started off awesome. He was getting points. He's getting assists. Then he got into foul trouble. So Mojave King takes over. He picks up, gets a bunch of points. He ended up getting player of the game on the back of what he did. Leading into a fourth quarter where you rest one or two guys, you see who needs a few minutes because you're winning by heaps. And the supposed bench unit, which isn't fully a bench unit, because like Flynn Cameron was out there, and he was the guy who took over in the fourth quarter. Flynn Cameron's one of the leading minutes guys in this team. Where did he rank on the thing? 1, 2, 3, 4. He's played the fifth most minutes. He was awesome in that fourth quarter there. He really took over and led things. Ben Gold's it seems like he's gotten a little bit more prominence as the games have gone on. Interestingly, on those minutes played things, Carlin Davison is sixth and Ben Gold is seventh, and those are the two leading individual rebounders for the best rebounding team in the competition so far. So you can see there how, from what I've just said there, how much they've been able to spread out the workload through these games. Taylor Britt, probably the best of the best, but Mojave King, the way he's adapted so nicely to being a Tall Black. I liked in his interview where he was very strict about very specific about, this is my first time representing my country. It's like, yeah, sweet ass. I like that. I like that personal pronoun in there when it's, given that he was obviously a dual national, he could have played for, well, triple national really, because he could have played for Australia. He could have played for America. He could have played for New Zealand. He's now playing for the mighty Tall Blacks and looking, really nice. He shot 46.7% from three-pointers so far, which is not even as good as Jordan Nata, who's at 6 of 11 at 54.5% and had a game against Philippines where he shot 5 of 5. So I'm looking at this, and I'm also looking at the same time as some of these like Breakers previews and because they finished up their roster, they signed another American. Can't speak on the Americans, don't know much about them. Other than that, the guy they've signed, Rob Baker II, was a teammate of Yanni Wetzels and Will McDowell-White's in Germany recently for a brief stint. But the big criticism of the Breakers rosters that I've seen from Australian people is that, like, well, I don't know about that depth though. And I'm thinking, yeah, I do know about that depth because I'm watching Taylor Britt, I'm watching Carlin Davis, and I'm watching Max Darling at the Asia Cup, and they're all been really good. You know, this is what the depth is for the Breakers next season, is these this level of Tall Blacks players, and they're going pretty well at the Asia Cup so far.
You also have a note here about Carlin Davison and Ben Gold being the leading rebounders for the Tall Blacks at the Asia Cup, who are, for starters, they're some of the youngest players in the squad, but they're also outside the top 5 for minutes played. We know all about Carlin Davison. This is just him continuing on his crazy mahi that he's especially been doing in recent years, coming into another NBL season with the New Zealand Breakers. So he's another Breakers player to watch out for. Maybe part of that look at the lack of Breakers depth. Because I have the same thing when I'm talking about Blackcaps, when I'm talking about the Warriors. It's like, mate, you don't even know who's coming next. Like, oh, you're worried about the Warriors wingers. Well, do you know about Sio Kelly? Because that dude is scoring tries for fun for the best New South Wales Cup team, and he's like 19, 20 years old. Oh, you're worried about Blackcaps depth. Do you know who Reese Mariu is? Because I've seen him play some crazy shots. Like, obviously, if you're talking Blackcaps depth, you've obviously seen Muhammad Abbas play cricket, right? Like, these things are the case for most of the sports that we cover, and it's something to just keep tucked away, because these youngsters are crazy. That's what we keep saying. The youngsters on the rise in Aotearoa sport are crazy. Happens in football as well. So my point there was Carlin Davison, he's good at basketball. Good stuff. But also Ben Gold. Who's Ben Gold? How is he one of the leading rebounders for the Tall Blacks, doing similar stuff to a elite New Zealand prospect like Carlin Davison?
Because Ben Gold is also an elite New Zealand prospect is probably the answer there. He's the only college player who's in the squad for this tournament. He's coming up to his, I think he's done 3 years at Marquette University, so he's coming up to his 4th year there. Often the 4th year is the last year, but sometimes the guys will hang around for a postgrad or something like that if they have extra eligibility. No point guessing because I don't know what that situation will be, but yeah, prepping for another season of Div 1 college. He is a sort of power forward who can dunk, who can shoot a little bit. He's obviously a very good rebounder and did get elevated to start alongside Toy Smith-Milner in the Philippines game. So clearly that was had to have been a sort of ploy to boost up the rebounding numbers and just the size in general against a smaller Philippines team. Let's lean into this a little bit more. So, and he continued that up with good minutes against Chinese Taipei in the 3rd game, where I think what did I write? He got like 14 points or something. I think he shot perfect from the field. Missed a couple free throws in there, but who's counting? Yeah, 14 points on 5 of 5 shooting. So quality stuff from Ben Gold, who, yes, is, again, one of the younger guys in the squad. I think Dante Russo-Nance is the youngest. He only recently turned 20, but Carlin Davison and Ben Gold, probably the next two. Not a hundy on that, but something along those lines. And yes, they may be among the youngest players, but they are among the better rebounders and certainly among the most athletic guys in the team, and are both finding ways to be impactful players for the Tall Blacks throughout this throughout the first 3 games of this tournament, but also through the games that preceded it. Which Ben Gold, actually, he wasn't part of the preparation stuff either. So he's actually joined this team on less prep than those other guys, because he only joined them when they got to Saudi Arabia, because Marquette University are in preseason mode at the moment, and then they wanted to keep him around for a little bit longer rather than spending 2 weeks in China with the rest of the squad. So he's clearly he's settled in pretty quickly there. That doesn't seem to have been a problem for him, and yeah, had a nice little impact in these last couple of games. So Ben Gold's certainly another one to get to know. His brother Sam Gold was part of the Wellington Saints team that won the NBL recently as well. So they're both Wellington natives. I can't remember. There might have even been a third brother. I can't remember. We got a few of these families around Kiwi basketball with a bunch of folks. So it all crosses over in my head sometimes. But yeah, Ben Gold certainly one that people got to be aware of.
Right, let's try digest some of this Blackcaps versus Zimbabwe test series and just where the Blackcaps test stuff is at right now. You should know this. I'm hoping you know this because it will make me look a whole lot more cooler. Who has been my favourite cricketer over the last?
Fox.
Yeah, right. Good stuff. I was concerned I might have to give you a warning, so we got the right answer there. But yes, Zach Foulkes has been a standout domestic cricketer over the last kind of 4 years, and then he made his test debut against Zimbabwe. Just specifically about Zach Foulkes, it was all on display. Right, he's moving the ball both ways for starters. So he's got the hoop and in swinger. He's got the at least it just holds its line. If I'm putting my Darfield cap on, it's moving away from the batter. And he also had the short pitch bowling. Because Zach Foulkes, he doesn't bowl fast. He's probably the slowest of all these young seamers that we've got. I mean, Jacob Duffy's not young. You have to keep reminding yourself there. He's like 30 years old, 31 years old. But he runs on his toes, so he bowls pretty quick now. 135, 138 Ks per hour. Matt Fisher, he's one of our fastest young bowlers. Nathan Smith, he's 135. Will O'Rourke, 145. Ben Sears, 145. These dudes are all bowling pretty quick. Zach Foulkes, he's more of a 130, 132, 133. Maybe if he's fired up, he's bowling 135. But Zach Foulkes, at every level of cricket, he has rattled batters with short pitch bowling. Like we know Will O'Rourke, what does he do? He smashes hands. It is obvious. He's bowling fast. He's tall. He is coming at you. Because that ball is always angling in at you. The same way Zach Foulkes' balls are always angling in at you. But Zach Foulkes' action rattles batters. And should I say this? It was just a weird occurrence. But you look, whenever they had the Zimbabwe, shout out Zimbabwe cricket, shout out the Zimbabwe broadcasters. In reflecting on the series, I found myself, I think New Zealand, we have a lot more in common with Zimbabwe. It doesn't feel like it because we're so good at cricket. That's just facts. Like, we are a top 4 cricket nation in the world. We are significantly better as a top 4 nation than Pakistan, than Bangladesh. I'll still say Sri Lanka, even though we just lost 2-0 to Sri Lanka in Sri Lanka last year. We are better than these nations at cricket, but they are our peers. We have more in common with them as cricket nations than the cartel, and I've switched from the little three to the cartel because England, Australia, and India, they are a cricketing cartel. And we as Kiwi cricket fans, as New Zealand cricket, we should not try be part of the cartel. I don't want anything to do with your cartel. Sure, I want to beat you at cricket. Sure, we can host you a few times. Sure, we can have some of your money. Honkadori. But our peers are nations like Zimbabwe. As the majority of the cricketing world are our peers. The minority is the cartel. So I want to, so that's like for our, as a leader, because we are a leading nation of these smaller nations, of the majority of the cricketing world, we've got to big up these other nations. We've got to help them get better. So shout out to Zimbabwe, shout out to everyone else doing their thing, battling away outside the cricketing cartel. My observation was that when the Zimbabwe cricket team list was brought up, it was all the batters were half Pākehā, half Palangi. all the bowlers were, what's the politically correct way? Like African Zimbabwe. This is tricky, right? This is tricky, but all the bowlers were black Africans. All the batters were white Africans. The guy in the middle, literally batting like 5 or 6, was Sikandar Raza, who was an Asian African. So it was like a weird thing where, and even like Brendan Taylor came into the team, he swapped out for the Ben Curran. So it was like they swapped out a white dude for a white dude. But it was just a weird thing where you look at the Zimbabwe team, all the batters are white guys, all the bowlers are black dudes, and the one guy between them, I think Sikandar Raza might have like Pakistan heritage. So he's a mix. Right? It's just I don't know why I found that weird or interesting, but it was just what it was. But my point here was that Sikandar Raza, he got bounced out by Zach Folks. And he got into a right pickle. It was all getting like uppity woo. And Zach Folks doesn't bowl fast, but he will bounce you out. And that's because of his weird, quirky action. And while on the topic, the Blackcaps team isn't very diverse. Like the Zimbabwe team was more diverse than the Blackcaps team. That needs to be said. Sure, it did look like their batting, bowling departments were a bit racially segregated. But the Zimbabwe cricket team was, I mean, Rachin Ravindra was the only non-white dude in the New Zealand team. So I would say the Zimbabwe team was far more racially, culturally diverse than the New Zealand team. That just feels better for me. I'm glad I kind of brought that around because I was getting into weird territory with Zimbabwe. But Zach Folks, he's pretty damn good at cricket. And he showed it there in the first test. Like Zimbabwe, yeah, sure, they struggled. But I mean, like Zach Folks is moving the ball both ways. Like Matt Henry is nipping the ball all over the show with accurate line and length over and over again. And it's like the skill of these bowlers was part of the recipe for Blackcap success. Like Zimbabwe, I keep saying Pakistan, Zimbabwe were kind of outclassed, but there was some serious skill from the Blackcaps bowlers. And Zach Folks, his main bowling thing is skill. He doesn't have Will O'Rourke's stature and speed. He doesn't have Ben Sears' hostilities. He doesn't have he's got the opposite kind of swing as Nathan Smith. He doesn't have he's got the same swing as Kyle Jamieson, but he doesn't have the size and stature of Kyle Jamieson. He doesn't have the speed of Matt Fisher, but he got the job done with his wickets, and that's because Zach Folks is incredibly skillful, and he moves the ball in very unique ways. This is what makes him a weapon in domestic cricket, where he is currently averaging below 26 in all 3 formats. Right? That's not an accident. You just don't do that. You just don't, I had a good day, so now I'm averaging 22 after 59 T20s. Like, that is a clear pattern, a clear trend, a clear theme, and that is why we have talked a lot about Zach Folks. And he was really good on debut. Did you have any thoughts about Zach Folks' test debutant alongside Jacob Duffy and Matt Fisher, who did their jobs, sure, not to the extent of Zach Folks, but they also took wickets. And this is another thing I've noticed. The seam is popping in for the Blackcaps. They're all taking wickets early in their career. Kyle Jamieson, 4 wickets in his first innings. Will O'Rourke, 4 wickets in his first innings. Ben Sears, 1 wicket, then 4 wickets. Nathan Smith, 3 wickets, then no wickets. Zach Folks, 4 and 5. Jacob Duffy, 0 and 2. Matt Fisher, 1 and 1. Like these dudes, whether it's first innings, second innings, they've all taken some sort of wickets on test debut. And that's a really positive sign as well, because I've got 7 dudes listed there who are pretty good at bowling. And they've all got wickets early in their test career for a bit of confidence.
Yeah, well, to highlight that, as well as it can be highlighted, basically, is that Zach Fox's 9 for 75 match figures from this test were the best bowling figures in a match by a New Zealand debutant ever. And the record that he broke was set by Will O'Rourke last year, right? So the 2 best seam bowling debuts ever by the Blackcaps have come within like 12 months of each other or something like that, which, yeah, there you go. Like it's vindicating a lot of the stuff that we often talk about. Zach Fox, like you said, the full array was on display. You know, he's bouncing a guy out. He's getting the like line and length wickets, but the stuff that really got me going was his in the first innings where he was bowling around the wicket outswingers to the left-handers who just were all over. Like they had no clue. Like no one could get bat on it even, and if they did, it was being edged to slips. It was an incredible spell of bowling, and I'm watching that being like, this is the guy bowling for the first time in Test cricket.
I've seen that over and over again against Jeet Raval, Sean Solier. Those two especially, because they play a lot of domestic cricket, so like Plunkett Shield, they're always playing. 2 very experienced domestic batters. And then there was also, like, I've seen him do that type of thing against Rachin Ravindra as well.
Yeah, and like 2 of those guys that you mentioned there, one of them was playing in this test and scored an unbeaten 160 odd. Jeet Raval's played a lot of test cricket as well, so very good domestic players, but also like international caliber too. So that's maybe some consolation to the Zimbabwe batters who just couldn't score any runs throughout the series. But I also think the New Zealanders would have, the way they were bowling would have taken wickets against most countries. I mean, Matt Henry, for starters, you're basically 2 down for 10 every time he opens the bowling, whoever it happens to be. There was a point there during the second test where I was looking up trying to be like, what's the most wickets a New Zealand has ever taken in a 2-match series? Thinking Matt Henry had a chance to go in there and beat it. As it happens, he didn't even beat his own record, because I think he got 17 wickets in the 2-test series against Australia last year or whenever that was. So he didn't quite get there. He had 16 in this series, and I think the record is like 20, I think it was 23, and I think it was Daniel Vittori against Bangladesh once upon a time. There are 1 or 2 others that have got to about 20, and Matt Henry could have got there, except that Zach Fox came in the second innings and took all the wickets himself, so he didn't share them around, which isn't so much something that Matt Henry missed out on as it is something that Jacob Duffy and Matt Fisher missed out on, not getting to get a couple extra wickets themselves. But I thought they bowled well enough to have gotten some reward as well, and they certainly were part of the team performance there. But I won't lie either, it was very nice to see some big centuries as well with the bat in that test, because we didn't get 100 in the first test. 300 odd was enough as a team, but like Devon Conway needed that pretty badly, and he not only did he score that 150 odd, but he also got what, like 70, 80 odd, 88 or something like that in the first test. Scored some runs in the T20s, so I'm feeling much better about where he's at, because as much as like we clowned him a bit for you've had 2 good years of like world class, and maybe 3 years, probably more than what you were world class at, of being kind of a subpar international batter. The best thing for the Blackcaps is to have world class Devon Conway back, because it's not like we can find someone else who can do what he did to start his test career. Because I mean, these aren't wickets for a bowler, but he did score 200 at Lords in his first innings of test cricket, so that's a nice start to international cricket as well. Little bit more experience in his case, but yeah, to get that version of Devon Conway back is the best thing the Blackcaps could get from that position in the batting order, and he looked pretty decent throughout these. 1 or 2 dismissals. The one where he like the way he got out in this test, where like we've seen him chop onto his stumps a lot of times. It's a regular occurrence for him. I haven't quite seen him. I haven't quite seen one before, not just from Conway, but from anyone where like you get hit in the chest or something like that, and bowled like deflected off your body onto the stumps and flipped off stump over out of the ground. I've never quite seen a dismissal like that before. Um, Henry Nichols getting 150 odd is less exciting for obvious reasons, but it's nice for him. It's like a good knock. He hadn't had one for a while. He didn't play a test in 2024. But if I'm being honest, I was watching Conway and Nichols piling up the runs, thinking, Rachin Ravindra's in next, guys. Come on, so hurry up. Let's get to the show. And Ravindra comes in when Nichols must have been. I can't remember exactly. I forgot to go back and check the specifics. But Nichols must have been on like 70 odd when Ravindra came in, and Ravindra ended up with more runs than him, with them both not out at the end of the day. He was it was worth the wait, is what I'll say there. He was spectacular in that. So good to see, whereas the first test was very much dominated by one or two like good battling innings with the bat, but mostly just excellent bowling. The second test had the excellent bowling and the excellent batting, so it was very like a complete performance there from the Blackcaps, and they got a lot out of this series, I think.
Yeah, I like might just chill out on Devon Conway's back to being world class. Like this is the thing
Well,
about
I'm not saying he's there
yeah,
yet, but
because
that's the aim. Hopefully, the trajectory is pointing that direction now, where it certainly wasn't before.
but then you got to make the same case for Henry Nichols, right? Like it
He didn't
is
score runs in the T20s.
yeah, Henry Nichols sucks. But this is the thing about this Zimbabwe series, right? Like
Mm.
we have to take the performances in the test against Zimbabwe and then build them out with all the other information we have. So actually, you're correct about Devon Conway because we've seen him. Well, you're correct. You're correct because I'm correct.
We're both correct.
Because based on the series, Devon Conway's in my first 11 top five. Right, so I'm making that judgment call based on what he did in the series compared to Will Young. We'll get into that in a jiffy, but it's like Devon Conway has had really world class, a genuinely world class phase. Then he fell out of form, and he did stuff in Zimbabwe to say like the way I'm thinking about it, like this top five. It's like there's got a, it's like the hot seat, the pressure zone, or like who's falling out of the fellowship, who's in the fellowship, who's entering the fellowship. Devon Conway was lacking runs that put him in the pressure zone. Right? Like he was in a territory where if he keeps struggling, someone else is going to take his spot because that's the depth we're working with. So at least he got some sort of runs to fight off the Orgs. Like he's still in the fellowship, right? Like he didn't get killed or anything. He did what he needed to do. But then like Will Young scored some runs, Henry Nichols scored some runs. Like all these dudes scored runs, so it makes it a bit tricky to compare and contrast. And to your point about Rachin Ravindra, so he is now the leading run scorer for the Blackcaps since the start of 2024. He's overtaken Kane Williamson, but he's also the only dude we got 6 guys who have scored over 500 runs. Ravindra's the only one with a strike rate over 60. And he's 64.4. Remember that Rachin Ravindra has an ODI strike rate of over 100. Rachin Ravindra is averaging 44 in ODIs with a strike rate of 109. This is what makes him so good, is he scores a lot of runs and he scores them pretty damn quickly relevant to that format. Henry Nichols didn't play his way into my top 5. Devon Conway held the fort. Like he's holding a defensive position right now. He's fighting off the demons. The next step
Defending
for him,
Helm's Deep.
Yeah, he's doing that. He's doing that. And unfortunately, personally, I prefer Will Young as a batter to Devon Conway. So when I'm feeling a bit brash, a bit outlandish, I'm going Tom Latham, Will Young, Kane Williamson, Rachin Ravindra, Daryl Mitchell. The sensible thing, the conservative thing, the thing that I think the Blackcaps are thinking, which a lot of other people are probably thinking, Tom Latham, Devon Conway, Kane Williamson, Rachin Ravindra, Daryl Mitchell. And then Will Young is our sixth batter competing for a top 5 spot. First of all, if Will Young is the next up batter, we're in an incredible position because I love Will Young. Batters who are averaging over 40 since the start of 2024. Rachin Ravindra 47.9, Kane Williamson 59.5, Will Young 42.5. In this period, Will Young's averaging 42.5, Devon Conway's averaging 30. Daryl Mitchell's averaging 32.7, Tom Latham's averaging 26.3. So Will Young, like the stats back it up, I think he's just a lot tidier for Test cricket, whereas Devon Conway's a bit loose. Like that bat, he just pokes and prods that bat outside off stump, and Zach Folks attacks both edges, right? He's going inside your inside edge, he's going outside your outside edge. Devon Conway exposes his own edges. Like you can get him out on both edges just because he's dangling his bat out there. That's why I just have Will Young as a more solid Test batter. But the sensible thing to do when we're doing the top 5 is to say Devon Conway's your opener. I am super duper happy if Will Young is my 6th batter there. Not 6th in the lineup, but we're talking top 5, then he is the next depth option. And credit to Henry Nicholls again, he's holding a defensive stance. He is number 7. He scored the runs he needed to do. I don't think he did anything to overtake anyone. But he's got experience. He's played international cricket before. He's scored just enough runs to stay in the contention. Below that, then you're getting into your Bevan Jacobs, your Tim Robinson, your Muhammad Abbas, your Reece Mariu. So that's the batting situation, how I read it. And I think it won't be long before someone like Bevan Jacobs, Mariu, Abbas, even Tim Robinson. I like Tim Robinson, but he's probably down the pecking order. I don't think it will be long before Bevan Jacobs, Muhammad Abbas, or Reece Mariu is putting pressure on Henry Nicholls. But for right now, Henry Nicholls is in that number 7 slot. I think that is just I don't think that's too dramatic, right? The way I've mapped out that top 5, then Will Young, then Henry Nicholls. All of those dudes have played a lot of cricket for New Zealand. That's the beauty. Like, you might not think they're the best batters ever. Henry Nicholls, you could say Tom Latham, he's out of form. What's he doing there? He's in a Tim Southee captain situation. You can have all the thoughts and opinions you want, but all those dudes are pretty solid international cricketers. And when you combine that with the competition for runs in the whole batting mixer, it should bring out the best of everyone. How do you view that read of the top 5 and then the next 2 dudes who are Will Young, Henry Nicholls, then you've got the youngsters?
Excuse me. I think that's exactly what it is. That's how I think the Blackcaps have it mapped out, and that's probably how I think it should be mapped out as well. I am also like partial to a bit of Will Young, but I can see. I think with Will Young, like, first of all, still doesn't have 100. You know, he's got I don't know how many 50s. It feels like 10 or more at this point. He does a very good job of, like, the fact his average is what it is, which I think is only around about low 30s or something like that. But the fact is that without having a big score to prop it up, because the big scores are often what do prop your average up. It's pretty like kind of low-key impressive from him that and you look at his like innings by innings, he doesn't get out cheaply very often. For an opener, he's often facing 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 deliveries. He might only score 30 or 40 runs in that, but he's certainly doing the first purpose of an opener of just like blunting the new ball and whatever. He's very good in that role. So he's hanging around there, but I think with Devon Conway is he just gives you more of a potential for like the big match winning type knock. He also might get out cheaper a lot more often, but he has the upside and the downside, whereas Will Young seems to have the consistent middle. I can't be too harsh. Like you can't make snap judgments like big drastic changes are based on a series in Zimbabwe where obviously one team was way better than the other. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't consider the possibility of, well, maybe Conway and Young together is quite a good partnership, and Tom Latham ought to be a little more worried, but you can't drop Tom Latham for being injured, and he is the captain. So, but considering, how the Tim Southee captaincy slump worked beforehand, that is something that is hovering in the back of my mind. I don't want it to be there, but it's an itch that needs scratching.
The last time Will Young was dismissed for less than 10 was the final innings against Australia. Right?
And they got a pretty good bowling attack.
His scores since then, 33, 48 not out, 18, 23, 71, 51, 42, 60, 40, 0 not out, 74. So that is 7 innings in which he has not been dismissed for less than 40 in a row in Test cricket. But your point about Conway, his ability to score freely, go large, like all of that applies as well. We did have an update. So Matt Henry, his Test bowling average has dropped below Trent Bolt's.
Hey.
Matt Henry is now averaging 27.40. Trent Bolt averaged 27.49. Trent Bolt does have 317 wickets in 78 tests. Matt Henry has 136 wickets in 32 tests. And for New Zealand bowlers who have taken over 100 test wickets, Matt Henry now has the third lowest bowling average behind Sir Richard Hadley and Bruce Taylor. So in this test series, he went past Neil Wagner, he went past Trent Bolt. So that's where Matt Henry is. And updating the Matt Henry Mitchell Santner glow up. Before 2020, Henry was averaging 48.4. Now he's averaging 21.9. 48 to 22. Mitchell Santner, he's gone from averaging 44.7 before 2020, and since then he is averaging 22. 44.7 down to 22. So now we've got those two as the leading bowlers in the test unit. We still have a bit of a question mark around Tom Blundell, but I did look through his test knocks and he scored a few, like that. He hit that swashbuckling century versus England when the test was lost. So like he only had 1 innings, I think, in this tour of Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
So I can't do anything about updating the Tom Blundell situation. He's currently averaging 22.2 since the start of 2024, which is basically the lowest for Blackcaps batters in this period. And then we just got like a heap of bowlers. And I don't know, bowling is just whoever's fit and healthy, because none of these dudes are going to be fit and healthy at the same time. I think Santner's a certified first 11 player right now. And him being the test captain, like that just didn't come about because Tom Latham was injured. That came about because Santner played his way into first 11 selection. Then he was a first 11 player. And then Tom Latham got injured. Because Santner wasn't a first 11 player 3 years ago. Now he is. If you're in the first 11, you're there for those opportunities. we have, so you got Matt Henry, the seamers I talked about before, Kyle Jamieson, Will O'Rourke, Ben Sears, Nathan Smith, Zach Fox, Jacob Duffy, Matt Fisher. 8 seamers who I've got ready to go. Test cricket, right there. And Santner, he can play as the leading spinner, but you've got to remember Glenn Phillips wasn't in this series. So he's another really good spinning all-rounder. And Ajaz Patel, unfortunately for him, he didn't play in Zimbabwe. So we can't update anything to do with Ajaz Patel, who has been really good recently. So Santner and Patel have been really good as spinners for the Blackcaps since the start of 2024 or just recent years. Santner's averaging 19.8. Ajaz Patel's averaging 27.9. Ajaz Patel should stay in the mixer. I think we're going to see other spinners who have played, like Michael Bracewell and Ish Sodhi. I think they're dropping out of the test mixer if they haven't already. And I think the top tier bowling department is going to be focused around those 8 seamers. 8, all of whom are freaky talents, 2 of whom are genuine all-rounders, Nathan Smith, Zach Fox. And then we've got 3 spinning options, Mitchell Santner, Ajaz Patel, Glenn Phillips. Again, that's crazy. Like, that is unseen New Zealand cricket depth. And like, sometimes you forget, Kyle Jamieson, he's pretty good at bowling. Ben Sears, he's only played 1 test. So now they have to be bowling better than Jacob Duffy, Matt Fisher, Zach Fox. Right? So it's like the circle of wicket-taking pressure, the circle of run-scoring pressure. Because if you're not scoring the runs, Will Young wants an opportunity. If Will Young and Henry Nicholls aren't scoring runs, Bevan Jacobs wants an opportunity. If you're not taking wickets, like if you're Will O'Rourke, you shit the bed, you're not taking wickets, well, Kyle Jamieson, Ben Sears, Jacob Duffy, Matt Fisher, they want to crack. If you're Nathan Smith and you're not scoring runs and you're not taking wickets and you're dropping catches somehow, you're misfielding, well, Zach Fox, he's ready to go. He wants another test. And he was fielding in the slip cordon in Zimbabwe. Right? Like, this is a circle of pressure that is only going to make the Blackcaps better, and it's there in every, like, skill set. It's there in the top order, it's there in the middle order, it's there in the whole batting department. Tom Blundell, Mitch Hay, well, he still averages over 40 in first-class batting. Like, he's going to be putting pressure on Blundell. We got spinners, we got seamers, we got all-rounders. You could have a Blackcaps team that has Mitchell Santner, Glenn Phillips, Nathan Smith, and Zach Fox in the same team. How crazy would that be?
Almost too crazy. Like, that's you're having to drop batters at that stage. But I mean, that's the thing, is those guys, Phillips is kind of already there, and Santner is certainly a proven a batter in his particular way. But Fox and Smith are certainly going to get better and better at batting. And even someone like Kyle Jamieson is test match 50s. He's pretty handy. He can certainly hang about at 8. Maybe he could have a bit of a Daniel Vittori level up later on in his career. I don't know. But I mean, you can't speculate too much on these things, because once upon a time people thought Tim Southee was gonna turn into an all-rounder. But like, guys do get better in the Blackcaps environment. We've got way too much evidence to deny that much.
Will O'Rourke is the opposite of Tim Southee. Because everyone thought Tim Southee was going to be a good batter, genuine all-rounder. He let you down more than he lived up to that hype. Everyone thinks Will O'Rourke sucks at batting. But I think Will O'Rourke, he's going to be an all-rounder one day. One day.
Well, let's also let's not ignore Jacob Duffy, who now has a test batting average higher than Will Young's.
36.
Yeah.
That is a factual statement. Let's check in with the Warriors, and I think this might just be a quicker rugby league section this week because generally I am more interested in what happens next. All right, so and this is very important for this week's game because you got a very easy NRL game against the Dragons on Friday night, and then the women are playing the Raiders, who haven't won a game. The weird thing is, it might not be an easy game against your Dragons. Like the Nichecache Derby, Warriors versus Dragons. Dragons coming off a couple wins. They had a big win over the local rivals, the Sharks, on the weekend as well. So, generally for the Warriors men's team, I kind of felt like the game against the Bulldogs went to script. Like you can't try and play like the Bulldogs, even if it's wet. Like there's a wet weather Bulldogs, they suck in the rain. What? So you're gonna outkick them? You're gonna outkick the Bulldogs by dropping Tana Boyd and selecting your worst kicking half in Tamaita Martin. Like I love Tamaita Martin, but in terms of kicking halves, he is the worst one at the Warriors. And your best kicking half is Tana Boyd, who was dropped. What did Tana Boyd do in New South Wales Cup? They had a win over the Bulldogs, and Tana Boyd, he had a cheeky old 19 runs, 144 meters, 2 line breaks, 2 try assists, 5 tackle breaks, 1 offload, and 20 tackles, 14 kicks, did all the kicking. Jet Cleary had 1 kick, and 83.3% goal kicking. So that's how Tana Boyd responded in New South Wales Cup. I just found it weird. You're playing in the rain and you don't select your best kicker. And sure, they were physical. The intent was there, all that cool stuff. The Bulldogs are just better at that style of footy than the Warriors. Just straight up and down, they're better at that style of footy, and they won the game. But now looking forward, I think Tana Boyd's going to come into the team at halfback, and I seem to be the only person who thinks that Tana Boyd's all right at rugby league, including Andrew Webster because he just dropped him. But now in the theme of the Warriors, I need to see Tana Boyd take his chance. Right? I need to see the Warriors show me and show the fans that they're still genuinely a good NRL team, and they have a chance of going deeper in the finals than it appears right now. That starts Mount Smart Stadium Friday night, 8 p.m. versus the Dragons. Because as we said earlier, nothing about the last month has been encouraging. Right? They've had losses at Mount Smart. They've had 3 losses in a row. 1 loss against the stinky Titans team. They coughed up a loss against the Dolphins, who then got smoked by the Roosters, and they just played right into the Bulldogs' hands for that game against the Bulldogs. So now it's all about how do the Warriors break out of this cycle? Because I don't think they want to be in this cycle right now. Like the players there, your Fisher Harris types, your Nickel Klokstad, your Tuivasa-Sheck, the youngsters like Dimitri Vaimonga. I don't think Dimitri Vaimonga's a loser. I don't think he's comfortable losing. And I think the players, the personnel at the Warriors, they will be very excited and eager to change this current trajectory. And I am curious about how that looks against the Dolphins. Meanwhile, the New South Wales Cup team is still awesome. Sio Kelly's been fantastic on the wing, and you've got a bunch of youngsters who are doing a very good job in New South Wales Cup. So that has stayed the solid. The New South Wales Cup team is against the Panthers. New South Wales Cup and Jersey Flegg are both playing the Panthers in Australia this weekend. And yeah, the Raiders women's team, they are at the bottom of the ladder which is good for the Warriors, a little bit weird for Aotearoa because they've got a lot of players from Aotearoa and they have not won a game this season. The woman, this game is in Hamilton, so it's one of these games where they're playing a standalone game in Hamilton, so make sure if you're in the region, get out and support the Wahine, because I think it could be awesome for Aotearoa Rugby League if they are drawing decent crowds by themselves in the Waikato region as well. You've got a lot of players from Waikato, Harata Butler, Capri Paikau, Maya Hill Moana. You've also got the Bay of Plenty connection. Taira Wetere and Peyton Taki Moana are both from Bay of Plenty. And that's the thing about this Warriors women's team. They have back-to-back wins, and Michaela Brake and Shakira Baker didn't play in those wins. So you think like the general perception for the casual fan is the best Warriors player is Michaela Brake. But the Warriors have played their best rugby league without her. And if you think about the quality of rugby union signings and all this stuff, well, Shakira Baker was one of those signings. She hasn't played in the back-to-back wins either. And now they're going to be doing the standalone fixture in Hamilton thingy-majig against the Raiders. That is Saturday evening. Back-to-back nights of Warriors footy, and this it seems like every weekend's a massive weekend for Warriors Rugby League, right? But the men need to get back on track, and they need to, someone in the team take their opportunity? Can we just stand up and say, nah, I need this spot because I'm here to win games of rugby league? It seems like everyone just kind of, obviously this is tinged by recent losses. It seems like everyone just gets their opportunity and kind of fizzles. Tana boy, can you just take your opportunity? Right? Can someone just step up and drag your team to victory, because the Warriors organization needs it right now in the NRL. And then you've got the women's team back on home soil and at their what will be a second home for them, a game they should win, because their back-to-back wins have come against the Cowboys, who are currently 4th, and the Bulldogs, who are currently 8th. So the Warriors are 6th right now, and their last 2 wins have come against teams in the same middle section of the ladder. So in theory, they should win against the Raiders, but you need to get the job done. The funkiest thing for both teams, and it's such a, it's the Warriors' identity, the Warriors' key fundamental of Warriors Rugby League in the NRL, that has diminished to where I don't know what it is right now, right? They don't offload. Bulldogs love an offload, as we talked in the bonus podcast last Thursday. And the one thing I was that's the long game, set for set grind. Well, how good are you at that if you were just sunned, little brothered by the Bulldogs in that style of footy, and you got humbled by the Panthers with that style of footy, and you lost late to the Dolphins trying to play that style of footy? All the identity markers for the NRL team, I think they have diminished to the point now where we're wait, what is this team about? How do the Warriors play their rugby league? And that is a very important thingy-majig we need to have a clear understanding of heading into finals footy. The Warriors women, well, they love dummy half running. They are first for dummy half runs in the NRLW. They have 124. The next best team has 78. And that is a fundamental stylistic element of how the Warriors women's team plays rugby league. And if you've got some dummy half runners getting busy around the ruck, And then you've got the big boppers. They started with Lavinia Kitai, I think, against the Bulldogs. Let me pull it up quickly. You got Metanoia Fotumoala and Lavinia Kitai, big boppers, starting the game in the middle. Then off the bench, you got Harata Butler, who was going crazy against the Bulldogs. Matakino Gray, who was also from like Rotorua. I think she went to Rotorua Girls High School. She's just a bully. She just smashes people. And then you've got Ivana Lauatiti as well, who is adding some serious impact off the bench. They just steamrolled the Bulldogs. Last in the Mount Smart game against the Titans, they were just smashing people. So you've got a lot of dummy half running, and then you're also overpowering your opposition. That is how you control a game of rugby league. And then you've also got the fact that you got two pretty good kickers. And what has happened recently is that Emily Curtin has started to do more kicking, and Patricia Maliepo has started to do less kicking. So in the first 3 games that Curtin played, she had less than 140 kick meters in each of those games. In the first 3 games that Maliepo played, she had over 140 kick meters. That has changed. That has flipped. Now Curtin has over 200 kicking meters in her last 2 games, and Maliepo has had less than 140 kick meters in her last 3 games. Maliepo is the better kicker. She is a more skilled kicker. But Curtin has more like rugby league craft, more nous. She is more experienced in rugby league, and her kicks just help the Warriors control the game better. Ultimately, I think they're just balancing out each other nicely, and they've found a nice groove as far as kicking balance. So now you've got some control as well. So you can see how the Warriors make their meters, dummy half running, overpower the opposition. You got a lot of big bodies there who love to smash their opposition as well, which has happened 2 games in a row. But you've also got really good kickers controlling the tempo, controlling the territory, and where that game is played. All of which should be on show against the Raiders, but you're a Dragons fan and you've just seen the Warriors lose 3 games in a row with losses against the Titans and the Dolphins, who you as a Dragons fan might be confident that you can win. You can probably beat the Titans.
Don't look up what happened when the Dragons played the Dolphins earlier this season, but
that was
Titans, sure.
That was earlier in the season. That's not now. Like, if you're playing the Dolphins right now, you're coming off 2 wins. Like, you're feeling good. So if you're from a Dragons perspective, you'll be thinking, we're coming off 2 wins. The Warriors have lost to similar teams as us recently, while they're losing 3 in a row. We're playing at Mount Smart Stadium, where the Warriors kind of stink. This is a fantastic opportunity for the Dragons to upset the Warriors. How are you feeling?
Yeah, well, that's it. This is an opportunity for the Dragons to get a win, which is not what I would have thought a couple of weeks ago, looking at the trajectories of these 2 teams. But yeah, Warriors have been slipping up a little bit, and certainly do seem like they're, I mean, the Mitchell Barnett loss, the Luke Metcalf loss just seems to be maybe bigger, and certainly in terms of Barnett, a little more irreplaceable than what might have been hoped for at the time. Like, you always just have that attitude of, well, someone else will step up. That's how it's got to be in any sports team. But you know, it's hard to replace your best players because that's why they're your best players. And the sort of chopping and changing they've had at halves, I think, makes the Metcalf loss feel bigger as well than perhaps what it did at the time. But like, what's funny about that is the Warriors seem like they've not just slipped up, but like you say, lost a bit of their identity without, and like James Fisher-Harris has been missing a couple of weeks as well, so it runs deeper than that. So it seems like a few injuries, and they've kind of yeah, they're spiraling a little bit, whereas the Dragons have also had injuries. Jaden Sawyer's missed a couple games. Valentine Holmes is out for the season. Now those two have been amongst borderline two of their three best players this season, I'd argue. Number one being Clint Gutherson, who will be there because he's like the Iron Man. And there was I can't remember which one it was. I think it might have been the Raiders game. He got injured and it looked like they were going to have to stretcher him off. He jumps back up and kept playing and finished the game. So he doesn't cease. But the Dragons have, when they've been challenged with their depth in the last couple of weeks, have ripped off an amazing win against the Raiders, admittedly in horrific like weather conditions, which I don't know if they could have beaten that Raiders team if it were dry and the Raiders weren't making like 3,000 handling errors in that match. But the Dragons backed that up by beating the Sharks most recently, and that was another great, like really good grinding win built with like long phases where they had to defend their line and do tough rugby league things. And that is how you expect a Shane Flanagan coach team to play, who somehow got a contract extension in the middle of those wins, which was a little bit premature, but fair enough, whatever. I think also, like, speaking of injuries as well, like the Dragons have some nice young depth, similar to how the Warriors have some nice young depth, and they're all injured as well. So like the benches had to change because they've got two Couchman brothers who are out, and Dylan Egan was really quite good for the first half of the season. He's out for the season. Hamish Stewart's the best of them, and he's like Gutho. He's hanging around. You can't stop him. But they've managed to find something to hang on to as they've been challenged in recent weeks, because they look like they could have been derailing up until not so long ago themselves. So it is a fantastically convenient time for the Dragons to be playing the Warriors from my perspective there. But that doesn't necessarily mean anything, because I've seen from both of these teams that the script doesn't necessarily it often gets torn up. But yeah, good, very good alignment for when this fixture turned up. Because if it happened a month ago, I'd be dreading that. Happening at this exact moment in time, what kind of feels like the Warriors might be at one of their potentially the low point of their season, whereas the Dragons probably are at the high point of this season, despite the fact that they're a few blokes down.
Couple things just based on what you said there. I don't like Clint Gutherson. To me, him and Shans Nickel-Clockstar are very similar fullbacks.
I can see it, yep.
But everyone thinks Shans Nickel-Clockstar is a shit fullback, pretty much. It's like, well, I don't know. He's just like, when you like, now that I was thinking of that comparison with Gutherson, I was like, well, he's the same as Gutherson, and Gutherson's like, no one's saying Gutherson's a bad fullback. Like, it's just like those type of fullbacks, you're just always in the right spot. You just do a lot of the hard work. You're not doing much of the flashy work, but you're doing a lot of the hard work that makes everyone else's jobs easier with and without the footy. And I think you just make the team better. And that's like, again, we're talking about Tane Tuau Piki at fullback. We're talking about the Bulldogs controlling that game. There's like still a lot of surrender calls in the first tackle of a set that suddenly is happening in the NRL these days. A lot of just being folded up. You know, I used to talk about the Warriors folding up their opposition. Now it seems like they are being folded up, and Tane Tuau Piki is just being folded up into a pretzel, slow play the ball, and it's just not quite as robust. But I think there's injury stuff, so I don't think you'll see any changes there. But I will say, I think Shans Nickel-Clockstar as a fullback is very similar to Clint Gutherson. Players that scare me about the Dragons, Terrell Sloan, he'll be the fastest player on the field if he's playing.
When he's on attack, don't expect him to move too quickly on defense.
Loses a couple of yards. We don't say yards here. That's the other thing.
It's not the foot speed that's missing. It's the head speed that's missing. You know.
Righto. Maybe throw a couple like math equations at him on the field. And
yeah.
Slow down.
Confuse him with some algebra.
And for some reason, Jack de Belin always pops in my head. Like when I see him play, like he's got the pass, he's a big body, he's probably going to be bigger than most of the Warriors forwards, but he's a good passer, he's aggressive, and he just seems to do damage for the Dragons whenever he's on the field. The halves for the Dragons don't scare me at all.
They scare me sometimes.
I can imagine. But at least they're playing in the halves every single week, right? And this is the thing, you like mentioned this at the start of your little Dragons setup. I just want halves clarity. You've got halves clarity. It might, like, no one's saying Kyle Flanagan, Australian halfback. Like King Tongia, he's all right. Like I don't see anything super duper special about him. He's doing all right. He's learning his craft in the NRL. I think the Warriors have better halves. Whether, like, in the halfback position, you got Luke Metcalf, you got Tanner Boyd. Tomato Martin, for me, is a number 6. So he's in your 6 category. Chanel Harris-Tavita, Tomato Martin. All 4 of them are better than the Dragons' halves. I believe.
I'd agree.
But there's so much wishy-washy stuff going on. Whether it is a player not taking their opportunity or whether it's the selections, both sides of this equation, there is no clarity about the best halves. Aside from Luke Metcalf being the greatest half the Warriors have ever seen, best half for 2025, Dally M superstar. That is the only clear thing we have right now, and the other clear thing is that Luke Metcalf isn't playing. Other than that, these are murky estuary waters, and it stems from the players not taking their opportunities consistently and some selection stuff. So from a Warriors perspective, I just want clarity on who the halves are. And that is something the Warriors have the talent and no clarity. The Dragons have less talent and more clarity. I don't know which is better, but I know what I want right now with the Warriors. We'll be talking a whole lot more about that. We'll be doing some more preview stuff. I'll get deeper into the nitty gritty, and then we'll come back on our bonus podcast available on Patreon and for paid Substack subscribers coming out Thursday to preview the weekend's rugby league action. But we'll get in some football to finish off here. Get us started, because I don't want to put this at the end, but I want maybe your 3 funkiest domestic football things. You can go anywhere around Aotearoa, but I want your 3 funkiest footballing matters from within the islands. The North Island, the South Island, the Chatham Island, the Waiheke Island, and Stewart Island, and any other islands around Aotearoa where they play a bit of foosball. What's your 3 funkiest domestic local football thingy-majigs?
Right. Well, fortunately, just ridden a big old domestic football roundup yesterday, so this is all fresh at the top of my mind. Let's start with Auckland City coming back from the Club World Cup, because even before they went to the Club World Cup, big talking point, big like spotlight on them. Even before that, though, they actually weren't having that great of a season through the Northern League. And so when they returned, having missed a couple games and having been knocked out of the Chatham Cup because they had to play their Chatham Cup game while they were in America, so they sent their under-23s out there and they lost, funnily enough, to Waiheke Island, I think it was. The Waiheke team beat them, I think. They then did the most Auckland City thing imaginable, which is they turned up 2 games in a short space of time against the 2 league leaders, Birkenhead United, Western Springs. They scored 90th minute winners to win both of them 2-1. The most Auckland City thing imaginable. You find a way, you beat the best teams when it matters the most. That's what they do. Put them back into the top 4 mix for National League qualification. Frankly, put them maybe on the fringes, but still at least in the picture for a late title race if they could see it through. Thing is, they then did a very un-Auckland City thing and they drew with Fencibles. And then this weekend, they drew with Auckland FC reserves. So they conceded a 90th minute goal. Lovely strike from Cody Phoenix. It's like sort of ball fell to him left edge of the box, and he just swung his boot through a volley and whacked it through the crowd and scored. That, if you remember, Auckland FC's reserve team had won 3 games in a row. Well, that breaks their winning streak, but it means they now have a 4-game unbeaten streak in a row. Cody Phoenix is one of 4 players who've started all 4 of those games for Auckland FC, the others being Ralph Rutherford, Nick Gaze, and James Taylor. That's pretty handy for Auckland FC reserves, because this is at a time they've had their best unbeaten streak, their best run of form at a time when no first team players are involved. Not the scholarship players, not none of the other ones, none of the non-scholarship first team players have played reserve football at all yet. Anyway, maybe in the National League you might see a few guys dipping down for game time, but yeah, at a time when Auckland FC squad is supposed to be at its weakest, you're seeing the next sort of wave of their wider club pushing through with some very good results, including one that might keep Auckland City out of the National League, because they're in a bit of strife now. They're going to have to not only win their own games but rely on some results elsewhere if they're even going to make the top 4. That's one point. The other point is that we number 2, we did get our first 2 league champions this week across the 6 main divisions, the sort of north, central, south, men and women. Wellington Olympic nearly joined them, but they only drew against Upper Hutt City, who are a relegation threatened team, which was a little bit of an upset. Plus Miramar Rangers also had a win, so that keeps the Central League race alive a little bit longer in the men's stuff. But the Women's Central League, that's over, because Wellington Olympic have won it. The Women's South Island League, that's over. Dunedin City Royals have won it. Both those 2 teams are not only undefeated, but they have perfect records. Dunedin City have won 14 games out of 14, 55 goals scored, 5 goals conceded. Wellington United have won 16 games out of 16, 87 goals scored, and 5 conceded. So they've each got 2 games left, having already wrapped up their titles, 2 games left to try and make it perfect. Interestingly, they're both out of the cup, though. Both of them have been knocked out of the Kate Shepherd Cup. Within that Wellington United dominance, you have Natalie Olsen. And Natalie Olsen scored. So on the weekend, they just needed to win against Palmerston North Maris. Any odd win, and that would wrap up the title for them. It was 0 at half time. It was 9-0 at full time. So they scored 9 goals in the second half. 6 of them were scored by Natalie Olsen. So that is, it's the first time she scored 6 in a game this season, but she's had 2 previous games where she scored 5, plus 3 other games where she scored a hat-trick. So 6 hat-tricks this season. 2 of them are 5-baggers and one's a 6-bagger. So I actually looked this up to see what Matt Henry has done this year for the Blackcaps. He has a 6-for, he has a 5-for. He also had a 5-for. That was in the Test series against Zimbabwe. He also got a 5-for, I think, against India in the Champions Trophy final. So he has 2 5s and a 6 for the Blackcaps in 2025, and Natalie Olsen has 2 5s and a 6 plus a bunch of 3s, same as Matt Henry for Wellington United and the in the domestic footy. All combined, Olsen has scored 35 goals in 17 games. And in the Central League specifically, that becomes 32 goals in 14 games, so better than 2 goals a game. The next best has 17 goals, so she's nearly doubled the second place. That's Pepe Oliver Bell of Petone, who she would have been doubled, but Oliver Bell scored 2 goals this week herself. So yes, if Wellington Phoenix scouts are taking a peek, they might want to look at the player who's scoring 2 goals per game in the Central League and domestically there. I think if you're not at least having a look, you're not doing your job properly. And then the other one, I want to throw up a guy who, one of the more interesting young emerging male players around the country is a fella called Flynn Holdham, who plays for Nomads United in the South Island League, Cantabrian. He's tall, he's blonde, he scores a lot of goals, and he's quite, strong, physically athletic for his size. So he's gained a bunch of Erling Haaland comparisons, some of them a little bit tongue-in-cheek, because obviously we're talking about the Aotearoa South Island, the Southern League here, but I'm happy to call him the Haaland of the South Seas. So I've been rolling with that. He is 17 years old, and this is actually his 3rd year playing senior football with Nomads. He scored 4 times in 10 games in 2023, scored 8 times in 17 games in 2024. He missed a bit of time at the start of the season, so maybe he was injured or something. But since he's come back, he's scored 9 goals in 9 games this year. He got a couple on the weekend. The reason I want to bring them up as well, though, is on top of being an excellent domestic football prospect, like a teenager or high school age player who's scoring goals in senior competition, that's already very notable. There's only a handful of guys who are doing that with any kind of consistency. He also played for Canterbury Cricket at the under-19s nationals earlier this year, and he scored 140 runs at an average of 40 and a strike rate of 96, batting in the middle order. Took 4 wickets as well, as a sort of, he bowled in 2 of the games. He didn't bowl in 2 of the other games, but he took 4 wickets at 25.75 average as well. So I'm not sure if he's going to end up in sort of in like my coverage beat or your coverage beat. It could go either way, whether he wants to be a footballer or a cricketer, but that's a hell of an athlete there.
We also had the Wellington Phoenix in the Asia Cup. And if we're talking
The
about
Aussie Cup.
what did I say?
They're not
the
quite
Aussie Cup.
qualified for Asia Cup
Yeah,
yet, but
yeah, right.
one day when the rules change, they'll go and win that.
But we had another youngster, Eamon McCarron, 17 years old. He was in the goalie spot, the goalkeeping spot, otherwise known as. And it was like probably not a pristine Wellington Phoenix performance because they were playing against a lower league team and they won 1-0 with a late winner, but they got the job done. And see another selection here for Zwan Loki. So he's getting a good run of opportunity, and you another game with Brooks Smith, Sloane Rodriguez. Like this is, like people say, oh, the Warriors, like the hyphenated names. I'm thinking, well, you better get used to it because like the hyphenated names ain't going anywhere as far as like covering the junior rugby league matters. But also Wellington Phoenix, we got the Kelly Heald brothers, Lucas and Albie. But you also got Luke Brooks Smith, Gabriel Sloane Rodriguez. So they might have 4 hyphenated names in the same team at some point. And they had 3 in this team that played against whoever they were playing. Nuna Wading City. Shout out to them. So the youngsters up front got another opportunity. And Isaac Hughes, you've said you've been... you said in our newsletter, in the paid section of our newsletter, that he was among the best on the pitch. So that's another kind of theme that we're building out this preseason, is that Isaac Hughes has been awesome. And also a game for Ifeanyi Eze, the Nigerian striker import. And also Carlo Armiento got some game time off the bench, I believe. So I think we've talked a lot about Wellington Phoenix youngsters. So do a little scouting report on these imports that got their first dose of Wellington Phoenix footy in this narrow victory in the Aussie Cup.
Yeah, it was a narrow victory, but I also thought they got better and better as the game went along. The guys like McCarron wasn't too tested. He looked comfortable enough on debut as a 17-year-old goalkeeper. Big elevation for him, but of course, Albie Kelly Heald is injured, and Joshua Laemi was out. I don't think he travelled. I think he stayed back with an illness. So that's how that happened for McCarron. Also, Dublin Boone, who was the 3rd choice goalkeeper last year, has left and coincidentally has joined up with the under-23s team at Stellenbosch in South Africa, which is the same club Andre de Jong plays for. So he's got some Kiwi company. Always talked about the Jackie Hand, Liv Chance, Liz Anton one at the start at Kolbotn. I can't think of another example where there's 3 Kiwis at the same club, but there's quite a few going around with this sort of 2 around, especially if there's like first team, second team. Maybe Nottingham Forest if you want to count Stamenic and Bindon, but Bindon's out on loan at the moment.
Wasn't there the Young Boys? Was that there was like a team in Europe where there were like 3...
there is Torslanda with the ex-Ole Academy guys in the 3rd tier of Sweden. So yeah, they have 4. 4 plus a director of football plus a coach. All the ex-Ole Academy guys just went over there. that feels like a bit of a self-contained thing. It's also like a few tiers down, but yeah, they're going good. Owen Parker-Price is having an excellent season for them specifically. So um, yeah, nice stuff there from Dublin. Boone getting himself a bounce back gig after being released by the Phoenix. But one of the reasons the Phoenix released him is because they have good goalkeepers coming through. Matt Ford was also on the bench. He was playing National League for Kashmir Technical a couple of years ago, leading up to his under-17 World Cup. So that's it's a bit of pedigree on top of that. And Eamon McCarron is also a New Zealand Youth International. Schwan Loke, I fully expect to debut in week 1 of the season. I probably off the bench. I don't know if he's going to hold off. Like, I think Tim Payne will move back to right wing back once he gets a bit more fitness in his legs. But he played centre back in this game because it was his first 45 minutes back from injury. But yeah, it was really once a few more of the senior players, specifically their imports, came on, that the Phoenix started to get a bit more control. So I can't read so much into sort of, limits 20, 30 odd minutes against a lower opponent, but I liked what I saw from Eze in terms of his strength. Certainly, there were a couple really nice touches. Also, a few instances where he didn't link up very well with his teammates, which I think you can very easily write that off to like he's settling into a new team in a new country and he doesn't know these guys very well yet. That's why he was only playing off the bench. Amiento looks like he'll be a bit of an easier one to slip into it because he is Australian. He's pretty sure he's played A-League before. He's ready to go, and he just jumped in at left wing back / left sort of. They changed it to a 4 in the second half, but I can't remember if he was playing on the. I can't picture it now because it was a late kickoff and I didn't make note of it. But his certainly with him, good left foot, great delivery. He actually took the corner kick that Hideki Shige scored from. So yeah, we'll add more color to this picture as we get to see them a little bit more on. But certainly with Eze, you've got a powerful striker who played out in the right wing. I think he could probably play through the middle as well. And Amiento is just going to be a wide dude who's gonna whip good deliveries into the penalty area, which should be threatening. And I think it's also something that maybe they didn't really get a lot of last season, was good high quality crossing from those wide areas. They got into those wide areas, but maybe didn't quite have the delivery to back that up. Amiento should help with that, I think.
That, of course, was a staple of Auckland FC, and
yeah, absolutely,
especially with Franny de Vries on the left side of the field. Let's finish with a Flying Kiwis roundup, starting with Ben Old, who did score a goal for Saint Etienne in France. Nice little burst down the left, and he just slots it into the far corner. What's the situation for Ben Old with Saint Etienne?
Yeah, like I mentioned a bit about the goal at the start, so I don't need to repeat that. I'll just say it after a year in which he didn't play a lot because of his knee injury. He missed a big chunk of last season as Saint Etienne got relegated. I think I think the relegation might be something that works out quite nicely for him, because he was it's not that he rushed back, it's just that he never really got a chance to settle. He didn't score a goal last season. He scored a few in preseason, but he didn't score a proper official goal. This was the first instance of him being able to get involved to that extent. He started the game. He was starting throughout preseason. He might still need a little bit more time to settle because, like I said before, it's sort of like I think the goal and the conveniently credited assist sort of cover up the fact that he maybe wasn't as involved as he could have been elsewise. Apart from that, but it's good signs from him. Like, he built through a very strong preseason. He earned his week 1 starting spot, and the key for him is to really use this. Hopefully, it's just one season. Sedetian did draw that game on the weekend. They drew 3-3. They were winning when he was subbed off, and then they conceded again, which we talk about Liberato Cacace in a second. That's a common theme, but. Yeah, it's up to Ben Old now to use this opportunity of a season in the second tier in France, where he will be playing for a team that's probably going to win most games, at least will be, having intentions of getting promoted back to the French top flight. They will be one of the better resource teams in this division. They wouldn't have been in the French top division, but certainly in the second tier they should be. A club with big support and quite a lot of history as well. So there will be expectations there. That comes with pressure, but it is maybe quite a good little window for him to ease into French footy. Because the thing about Ben Old is I don't know that he Cacace felt fully formed when he left Wellington Phoenix. He felt fully formed when he was playing for the Wellington Phoenix as an 18-year-old. Ben Old always has felt like a bit of a project player where there's a few things that just need to be added. One thing I never quite understood is why a guy who seems to be so strong on the ball in terms of being able to protect it, shielding the ball from tacklers and stuff like that. He seems very good like that. He's got great lower lower body kind of balance there, but he doesn't seem to be able to tackle very well is one thing that was never true of him at the Phoenix. And this is a step up as well in terms of some of the physicality playing in France, certainly last year playing in the French top division. So there's things there where it's like he's got to add a few more strings to his bow or whatever, feathers to his cap kind of thing, which I think this season should offer him a little bit more room to be able to do that compared to the helter-skelter, just trying not to get relegated. Very much short-term thinking that you have for a team that was in Sid situation last season, for example.
You mentioned Cacace. What's the latest for Cacace now with the old Rexes? Wrexham.
Righty Wrexham. I wasn't sure if he would start straight away because he really only had the last 2 weeks of preseason. He didn't link up with the squad until after they got back from playing against the Wellington Phoenix. So I wasn't sure if that would be the case or if they might, take a month, play off the bench here, maybe 10 minutes on debut, 30 minutes in your next game, maybe start a cup game and around there, and then you ease his way on into it. But no, first game of the season, starting at left wing back, which remember as a position, it's his best position, but it's not a position he actually played a lot for Empoli last season because they had another guy at left wing back, so they would just pick Cacace wherever else they could fit him. He was a first 11 player, but he wasn't actually first 11 in his position. He would sometimes start as a winger further forward. He would sometimes start as a left-sided centre back in a three. So, and occasionally he would get rotated in at left wing back, but this is very much him getting back to what he does best, playing for Wrexham here as that left wing back. And it was a weird game. I watched this game, and it was such a strange, I couldn't figure out if I thought Wrexham were completely in control of this game or if they were getting absolutely dominated because they were playing like a counter-attacking style, which is pretty good for Cacace. He's fast and he gets out and he makes those runs and he's super fit and he just keep going all day. So that's he suits that style quite well. But when you only keep 26% of possession or something like that, you're also facing a lot of shots back the other way. So it was a strange one where it felt like their plan was working, but I just also didn't know if that was. It felt a little bit too far in that direction. Certainly in the second half where they tied a little bit, but even more crucially was that Kiefer Moore, another one of their new signings, they had 6 debutants in the first 11. So you can see Cacace is not alone. Wrexham are very much tooled up since they've gone up. And I think a 7th debutant came off the bench and an 8th one was injured, and they've said they want to make more signings on top of this. So don't think he has to worry too much about fitting into what the team was doing last year because that doesn't exist anymore, clearly. But yeah, I thought his work rate was really good. I thought he fitted into the style nicely. Just a good solid performance, but you don't get a lot of touches when your team hardly keeps the ball. And yeah, when Kiefer Moore went off injured, they lost their best hold-up man, and that took away from what they were able to do quite a bit. And yeah, Cacace was subbed off with 5 minutes to go. They were 1-0 up. They then conceded 2 goals and lost 2-1. So they're clearly a better team with them out there. They're not, but bigger picture, I think 2 lessons we can learn from that game. One is that Wrexham shouldn't be worrying about relegation. That was against Southampton, and that was a team that's just been relegated from the Premier League. So I think at least they should be a solid enough mid-table team. I don't know if don't think they'll be pushing playoffs quite this yet. But they're going to be a solid competitive team against whoever they happen to be playing. And the other thing is that Cacace looks like he looks completely at home within that team. He looks at home at that level with those teammates. Like he just looks like a player who's going to be one of their regulars. Well, he's become a regular from day one, and I think that it's going to continue nicely, which is good because it's nice to have a mostly positive story from the championship debutants over the weekend because we didn't get that with Tyler Bindon, who I thought was okay from what I saw of the Sheffield United game. Unfortunately, they had two centre backs from last year who were expected to be the two coming into the season. Then they signed Bindon, so you're thinking, okay, well, he'll get his minutes when someone gets injured or rotated, or he'll try to earn his spot as the season progresses. But then they sold one of those guys to Feyenoord, and then come game one of the new season against Bristol City, a team that they won 6-0 against over a two-legged aggregate in the playoff semi-finals last season. They ended up losing 4-1, and their other centre back who has ironically been linked to Wrexham in recent days. Well, he didn't play. The coach said it was only a matter of, well, he did come off the bench later on, but he came off the bench when they were 4-1 down and looking in absolute shambles because they picked a left back alongside Tyler Bindon to be the other centre back. So you got a 20-year-old on debut who hasn't played in the championship at this level before in Bindon, and you've got a left back playing centre back against a team that made the playoffs last year, even though you're also a team that made the playoffs last year. And yeah, it was a bit of a shambles. They lost 4-1. You got to be careful with these things because when teams lose, especially for some reason in pessimistic England, everyone just lashes out and wants to blame people. So if you go looking up the reactions about Tyler Bindon's performance, there's a lot of stuff about how is this guy even a professional footballer and whatever, what a waste of signing. And clearly we know that to be wildly inaccurate. I actually thought, based on the look of it, he was probably the most consistent of their back four in that game. But when it's a shocking team performance, everyone kind of suffers when that's the case. But let's see what Sheffield United look like when they put an actual centre back next to him and have a decent, have four capable defenders in the same starting team. Perhaps things might be a little bit different, but at least we know Tyler Bindon will be a starting level player for Sheffield United, reuniting with his old mate Ruben Sellers, who gave him a start at Reading not so long ago, like less than 2 years ago. This time 2 years ago. The other championship bloke that we've got, we might get more because there's the chance of Marko Stamenic or Alex Paulsen loans. They could certainly, a championship would definitely be the type of destination where those guys might end up if and when that comes to pass. But the other championship signing we know we've definitely got is Max Crocombe, who unfortunately was the backup goalkeeper for week one as Millwall won 2-1 against Norwich. But again, like two lessons to take from that. The first one is this is normal stuff, like standard transmission for Max Crocombe because he wasn't the week one goalkeeper for either of his 2 seasons at Burton, but he was the number 1 goalkeeper within about a month after those seasons started. He's pretty good at winning his spot, and it doesn't take him that long for him to do that. And they do have a League Cup game tomorrow morning, Wednesday morning, so that'll probably be when he starts his charge. They've got an established number 1 at Millwall who's out injured until maybe midway through the season, so it's kind of only a 6-month little gig as it is. But they not only did they sign Crocombe, they also signed a German loanee from Fulham. So he was the guy, Stefan Bender. He was the guy who started ahead of Crocombe on the weekend. First point, was that Crocombe is used to having to earn his spot early in the season, and he's also pretty good at doing that. Second point is that even though Millwall won that game against Norwich, the goal they conceded came because Bender dwelled on the ball for too long and had a clear and kick charged down by a striker, and it bounced into the net. So entirely his fault, the goal they conceded, and that probably works out in Crocombe's situation as well. So it was a bit of a bummer to see him sitting on the bench, especially when Cacace and Bindon went straight into being first 11 players at a very, very hard, very competitive kind of professional level there. Bit of a bummer that Crocombe couldn't make it 3 out of 3, but like I say, standard transmission for him. He's used to this, and it generally doesn't take him that long to turn things around.
And Marko Stamenic getting a bit of footy for Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, I mean, when he didn't make the travelling squad for the training camp in Portugal a few weeks back, you're thinking, okay, I guess the loan is imminent. He did his bit. He made his introductions, played a couple preseason games at the start of the journey, and now it's time for him to go and settle in early before seasons kick off at whatever club he's going to end up at. Then nothing happened. Then they finished up their Portugal tour. Then they come back and play a couple more games, and suddenly Marko Stamenic is getting minutes there, and he's getting minutes ahead of some of the guys who went on the tour instead of him. So now I'm starting to wonder, well, maybe he was just injured. Like maybe they just didn't bring him along because he was injured, and it's just a matter of like rather than having anything to do with transfers, rather than anything to do with where he sits in the pecking order, he's just unavailable. I don't know. I don't know that that's the case, but that's the point. We don't know. We've had some new information has come to light, and the situation has changed slightly. So the Premier League kicks off next week, and I will say not only is Marko Stamenic still at Nottingham Forest as things stand, but Alex Paulsen is still at Bournemouth as things stand as well. And the transfer window goes until the end of the month, so there's 3 weeks left, more or less, and often times, especially with goalkeepers, I think this probably applies to Paulsen even more so. Like you might just have a couple. The first 2 or 3 games in the league can sometimes come with a rude awakening, and there are going to be clubs that are like that, where it's like, oh wait, this goalkeeper sucks. This guy's rubbish. We need someone else, and we've only got a short amount of time to figure this out. Let's see what Premier League clubs have someone available on loan, and Alex Paulsen might be the type of guy that pops up when you type those criteria into the scouting search engine. These things can happen, and they can happen pretty quickly, and they might even have already been planned ahead of time. And this idea is just, let's keep them around with the first team for a little bit longer, and let them feel a bit more at home and show a bit more sort of investment in their development. Don't know, but as it stands, both those 2 guys are still on the books of their Premier League clubs. So don't know. I'm trying to think when the last time we had a Premier League debutant. We've had a New Zealander playing in the Premier League every year for about at least 20 seasons, more than 20 seasons, I think. But for a long time, that's just been Chris Wood. So I think the most recent debutant was probably Winston Reid, who actually debuted in the Premier League after Chris Wood, because Chris Wood he once upon a time came off the bench for West Bromwich Albion when he was 17 years old. So that sort of very long, multi-clubbed early phase of Chris Wood's career before he sort of settled down. Yeah, it's been a long time between drinks there, but there's a possibility. I still think those 2 guys probably end up on loan, but there is a possibility. And at the very least, they've had enough sort of they've had enough love shown their way through the preseason to think that they are still very much in the plans for those clubs in the longer term, if not in the short term.
Beauty. Let's wrap it up there. That's our podcast for this week. Hope you're doing all right. Tap in with, make sure you're subscribed and all that other interweb stuff on whatever platform you're giving it a jam. And big up yourself. Love yourself. Kia kaha. Stay beautiful. Chur chur.